Hey everybody, it's Crystal again. I'm currently in my Clone High era still, and that means I still can't stop making edits, episode breakdowns, and character analyses to save my life, because of how much I love these characters, and the moment anyone criticizes them, I become a feral monster. I am truly in deep, and these lovely people in my comment section of my Scudworth video decided to send me further into a spiral, and I want to gush about it again. I rewatched the show. Principal Cinnamon J. Scudworth has now become one of my favorite characters after what the 2-episode finale did. Retconning some of the things from the original show to recontextualize him as a caring father to his creations. Well, albeit one who is a clinically insane man who can only show or believe in love that's of power and control due to his parent issues and maybe even because of some tragic past of him falling from grace in his own high school. I think I may have dug another rabbit hole for myself, so let's break it down. We know little to almost nothing of most of his childhood or his teenage years, but we do have some clues. Under the truth serum in the episode Sleepover, he admits that one of the reasons he found Candide Sampson attractive was because of his attraction to her cold-heartedness and her loathing, which he had seen in his mother. Meaning, he must have had a childhood where he felt like he wasn't important enough. In the next episode, he mentioned how much he cried for his father at his funeral, which, to this day, he uses to prove to himself that he can get all the women by being pitiful. I don't really know how this man was so close enough to winning High School Prom King, but a lot is revealed in Season 2, Episode 1, who he is as a person. And it's kind of hidden in plain sight. I don't know if anybody has paused Clone High to look at any of the case files from episode 1, because there's a ton to go off on here. Apparently he wears gloves in the shower because it is believed to have permanently pruned fingers and disgusting fingernails. Ew. He was a freelance spy by the name of Ecabo Pooch? What even the heck? And there's a sticky note about the blood feud with John Stamos, which is funny at first glance, but hold on to that one, okay? It says in his file that the desire to replicate clones of historical figures stems from his childhood growing up with grifter parents. Rich, cold-hearted, and loathing parents allowing him that kind of status to be popular enough to be in the running for prom king? That checks out, I think. It was definitely enough for him to go to a place called Ivy League University for college. And about his time at college, it states in the case file that they pulled his grant money for a myriad of misappropriation and ethics violations surrounding his work. Means he was also smart enough to receive grant money for his college projects. What they were is a mystery, it doesn't say, but his quote about the scientists who failed them is the biggest thing in science that dumb idiots couldn't possibly understand, even though the concept is very simple, may mean this had to do with human cloning. The retcon and for-year consideration in question is when the idea of Cloney Island actually happened. It's a lot more obvious than the ones in the pilot where we see an adult Eleanor Roosevelt gym teacher when Scudworth only created the clones in the 80s and just now they were teenagers in Season 1. But in Season 1, when he was filming the documentary for his counter-evil plan to create Cloney Island behind the board of shadowy figures' back, Scudworth says this.
Are you sure making a documentary revealing your evil plan is the best idea?
Quiet, Mr. B, it's on! I first got the idea for Cloney Island after seeing the movie Jurassic Park 3. But my ill-conceived amusement park will be filled with human clones instead of zoo animals. It's as foolproof as the amusement park in the movie itself!
Well, dear viewer, you see, Jurassic Park 3 came out in the year 2001, a year before the first season took place in 2002. But in Season 2, Scudworth, around 1987 or 1988, was pitching the idea of it to Mr. B at his mansion in Hollywood. We know for a fact that was the year that he created the clones, because in Litter Kills Literally, where we find out Ponce de Leon's death dates, his date of birth was in fact 1987. Remember the joke about Hollywood and how it, according to Clone High, is the place only desperate people go? And remember that blood feud that was mentioned earlier? How funny is it that around the same time in 1987, John Stamos would have the role of a lifetime taking care of someone else's children in a child-friendly sitcom and making a gross amount of money in doing so? And you just know Scudworth saw that as the final straw and he just had to have his own. So he dug up the famous guys and ladies in history, the most powerful people he could possibly think of, and did what he had to do: make clones of them and hold power over those who have had the most, to compensate for his losses in his childhood and at least hold some power over someone. And to stick it to Stamos even more, he hired Mr. B, a play on Mr. Belvedere, by the way, who starred in his own popular sitcom, to help him and be a part of his clone project, getting more money than his parents ever dreamed. It is unknown as of yet whether the US government went to him to just arrest him for grave robbing and possibly other crimes, or that they had the plan to start Clone High before they had failed. That would explain Eleanor. Another theory I have is that he went to them for the extra money to build the park, thinking he was smart enough to get away with it. On another page of the case file, they do underestimate him by calling him a house pet level threat, and did let him do what he asked, to appoint himself as the principal. Why did he do this? To be a Mr. Belding, perhaps? Lol, maybe. Or, what did he say in the pilot?
Oh, young, unsuspecting clones. Little do they know, I control them. The greatest minds the world has ever known. For what is more powerful than a high school principal?
Dr. Scudworth.
Well, his parents had all the control and the coldness, and he didn't. John Stamos had all the control over his classmates, and he didn't. He has no control over the clones anymore after that, being sent to their foster families instead of staying with him. What better way to love them from afar than to relinquish them and be in your own little world and biding your time with your new British servant, having a close watch on someone else's that you know are truly yours, children, growing more and more insane and attached to the dream.
There's growing concern among the secret board of shadowy figures that you may be completely insane.
Blasphemy!
Yeah, well, you do have a robot butler named Mr. Butlatron.
Anyone for clones?
It is hinted every once in a while that he doesn't like mushy feelings, like when he talked with JFK over his breakup with Cleo in season 1, seeing others beneath him that he believes are weak like Topher Happy, prefers to die alone, and feigns vulnerability to get women because of what happened after he was grieving over his father. But even with the distance he puts between himself and everyone else, he loves those clones. He was willing to give up and bet away his own firstborn son, as revealed in Joan Coming. So proud of them when they flipped the pool after winning the track meet. Tried to be one of the cool dads in movies and let them have their little school musical. He actively does whatever it takes to have some control over his creations, like the time he took Mr. B's, or should I say Wesley's, vest, to have some way for the clones to like him back. And he was interested enough in the relationships of the students that he knew Joan FK was a thing. But the most damning piece of evidence, I think, is that when the board and his clones were put on ice by Stamos in the freezer, he cloned more and got them all adopted again 4 years later, and in secret. So that can really mean only one thing. Scudworth is afraid of what the board can do to him. I mean, he would always cave in whenever they threatened to eliminate him. And the first time that he was fired by the leader of the board of the shadowy figures and was told that his clones would be taken away in 2003 on prom night and that he would be terminated, thus never seeing them again, he fainted. Was out of it so much he had amnesia, and he was openly weeping that his hard work in placating the board the whole semester and creating the death maze and the watch party only resulted him in getting fired. That's not just a man who lost his creations for money or fame in creating a bigger hall of presidents at Disneyland, and his attraction to Candide flew right out the window and was determined to axe her as soon as it happened. And Candide knew that he cared about them too much, and said that fact outright to his face. She had been building up his insecurities throughout the entire season, cursing him for all his failures and telling him that she would be reporting him to the board. She also knew he would go on a killing spree against her and the board because of how much he cared, and she used it to her own advantage to get rid of all of those who stood in her way for her own power and for her own gain, and then criticized him for it. The death maze? Really? Was in name only. No one died, except for the one Genghis Khan ripped the arm off of. Jury's still out on that one. But in any case, no one was really hurt by this scheme and the event that he made. He just made the clones fall through holes, face scan grades and heebie-jeebies. He does care for them, And when Candide threw it in his face, he doubled down. They're his children, his creations, and his greatest achievement. The only thing he truly had any power in creating from the ground up, to be taken away from him for a second time, and with no memories. And the only one of the clones to hear this is Joan, who has heard how much Mr. B cares for her on multiple occasions, and now how Scudworth cares for them, and by extension, her as well. So I hope through her this idea of this little family Scudworth created will be further explored. I mean, with Joan now being a social pariah again, and fixing to go through her Sunset Shimmer era, you probably get that reference or you don't. It will probably be an amazing opportunity to bring the family theme more front and center into the narrative. Besides, what makes you more of a pariah in high school than when the only people who like you are your parents and the principal? And you gotta feel sorry for her more when those are the people who tried to erase the students' memories and tried to create the death maze in the first place. What a stake you've created, Joan, and wouldn't your clone mother be proud that you earned it this time? What do you think is gonna happen to Scudworth next season?